Hello everyone, Juggalozen back at it again, Schlub and Nubbin, here with the first installment of Schlub deck techs. It was requested on my academic unboxing video that I do a deck tech on my 60 card casual squirrel build that I had foiled out. So this is my attempt to do so. So here we go. So I'm going to start off with the spells here, the instants and sorceries. So first off, I have 4 copies. Focus up, you. I have 4 copies of Chatter of the Squirrel. And these are original foil copies. That makes me happy. So, of course, Chatter of the Squirrel, turn 1 play, make a squirrel, and then for 2 mana you can flashback it from your graveyard, make another squirrel. Very good, very good. Can't have a squirrel deck without that, in my opinion. Second spell, I have 2 copies of Chatterstorm. So these are the retro foil, was it retro border foils? I'm trying to get this like all retroed out. So here we go. Right. So Chatterstorm is a, oh, was it also the Chatter of the Squirrel was a sorcery. So Chatterstorm is also a sorcery for 2 mana, create a 1/1 green squirrel creature token, and it has Storm. So if you had 3 mana, you could do a Chatter of the Squirrel for 1 squirrel token, and then you could do a Chatterstorm for 2 more squirrel tokens. So that's, you know, was it 3 squirrels for 3 mana? That's actually not a bad thing. So 2 copies of Chatterstorm. Then we will do 3 copies of Verdant Command. So Verdant Command is an instant for 1 and a green. You choose 2. Target player creates 2 tapped 1/1 green squirrel creature tokens. Counter target loyalty ability of a planeswalker. Exile target card from your graveyard. Target player gains 3 life. So of course you're doing the squirrels, but exiling a card from a graveyard and gaining 3 life, those are surprisingly effective abilities. And even though I have yet to see the loyalty ability, the countering of that in action, that is also something that can't be discounted. Was it Verdant Command is just a good card. And was it the ability to get 2 more squirrels on an end step can make a big difference in somebody's math. Big difference. So again, 3 copies of Verdant Command. Right, okay. So then we end up with 1 copy of Driven to Despair. So this is a very interesting card that was not on my radar until I was looking at some Chatterfan commander lists. So Driven is 1 and a green sorcery. Until end of turn, creatures you control gain trample, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. That's a beautiful card draw for a deck like this. And then Despair, which you cast from your graveyard. That's what the Aftermath ability is. It's for 1 and a black. Until end of turn, creatures you control gain menace, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, that player discards a card. So trample and menace makes them super hard to block. And if they deign to deal any damage, they're going to lose their hand because you're probably swarming them and costing them 2 to 3 cards, maybe even more. That also is a huge swing in the game, because you end up with cards and they end up with nothing. That's big. So here, right, so Squirrel Production is all of these cards here, and then you have this game changer of a card here. 1 copy of that. Alright, so those are the spells. Now we're going to get to the enchantments. So here we have 3 copies of Sylvan Anthem. Sylvan Anthem, what an incredible enchantment for green decks. So green creatures you control get +1/+1, and whenever a green creature enters the battlefield under your control, scry 1. Do not sleep on how many scries that gives you. The scry is great. This is just such a great card for only 2 mana. Just a beautiful card. And then we will have 3 copies of Squirrel Nest. These are also original foils, which makes me very happy. So Squirrel Nest, 1 and 2 green, enchant land. Enchanted land has tap to put a 1/1 green squirrel creature token into play, so onto the battlefield. So, you know, you put it on a land, and then at instant speed you can tap that land, make a squirrel token. Just this is really great, repeatable squirrel production. Great in a pinch for blocks or for sack effects that your opponent might do. So then we have one copy of Bow of Nylea. So 1 and 2 green, legendary enchantment artifact. Attacking creatures you control have death touch. That's huge when you're going wide. And then you have these other abilities that really don't matter, but they can do things. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Deals 2 damage to target creature with flying. Or you gain 3 life. Or put up to 4 target cards from your graveyard on the bottom of your library in any order. So, I mean, was it you get some reusability on your cards? Maybe. Was it 2 damage to target creature with flying? Gain 3 life in a pinch. +1/+1 counter on target creature. That could help save you, in combat. That can be a good combat trick. But of course, the attacking creatures have death touch. That's the main draw of this. So here we have all of our enchantments. 3 Sylvan Anthem, 3 Squirrel Nest, 1 Bow of Nylea. Alright, and now we get to the artifacts. So we have 2 copies of Chitter Spitter. Ooh, okay, there we go. All right. So Chitter Spitter costs 2 and a green. Artifact. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may sacrifice a token. If you do, put an acorn counter on Chitter Spitter. Squirrels you control get +1/+1 for each acorn counter on Chitter Spitter, and then for a green and tap, you create a squirrel. So that right there is also really good. So it's kind of like Squirrel Nest, where if you have 4 lands, you can make a squirrel. This is if you have 4 mana, you can make a squirrel. And you can also, it just says sacrifice a token, which, like, if you're doing another deck that's not just squirrel production, you can sacrifice like a treasure token or some other token, clue token, food token, and that would get the acorn counter and it would buff up all your squirrels. But you can also, at the beginning of your upkeep, this is a triggered ability, so you can respond by, paying 1, tapping it, making a squirrel, then sacrificing that squirrel to this to get an acorn counter, and now you have all those squirrels that started the turn ready to attack, and now they're buffed. So Chitter Spitter, really great card. Really, really great. So those are my 2 artifacts. So now we get to the creature base. So we start off with 4 copies of Ravenous Squirrel. So Ravenous Squirrel is simply here because it's a 1-drop squirrel. It's a 1/1 for 1. So that's kind of almost copies of a Chatter of the Squirrel. Whenever you sacrifice an artifact or creature, put a +1/+1 counter on Ravenous Squirrel. So that also includes when you sacrifice a squirrel to Chitter Spitter. These will get bigger for Chitter Spitter. And then for 1 black and green, you can sacrifice an artifact or creature. You gain 1 life and draw a card. Sometimes that's useful, sometimes, but it does cost a lot for this kind of deck. It costs you 3 mana and a critter. But I mean, the growth that this guy can do for you is pretty good. So we have that there for additional turn 1 plays. And then we have 3 copies of Llanowar Elves. So these are the special, that Dominaria promo. So we all know Llanowar Elves. 1-drop, 1/1 elf, tap for green mana. So this will help speed out your plays, especially the later plays. And then we have 3 copies of Squirrel Sovereign. So again, these are the retro borders. So Squirrel Sovereign is 1 and a green for a 2/2 Squirrel Noble, which I find hilarious. Other squirrels you control get +1/+1. So this guy makes you having a turn 1 squirrel like really important. Turn 1 squirrel, turn 2 Squirrel Sovereign, attack for 2. You're applying the pressure. You're applying the pressure very quickly. So 3 copies of Squirrel Sovereign. Then we have 3 copies of Chatterfang, Squirrel General. Also retro border foil. So 2 and a green for a 3/3 Squirrel Warrior, legendary, with Forest Walk. So Forest Walk is very important. But also, if you would make 1 or more tokens, you make that many squirrels on top of making those tokens. So in this deck, since we're not making any other kind of token, when you make a squirrel, you make 2. It's beautiful. And then for 1 black, you can sacrifice any number of squirrels to give target creature plus X minus X. So sacrifice X squirrels for plus X minus X. Really great removal. Just great. That's usually what you're going to use it for, great removal. You're not going to use it to buff up too much. You might use that for Chatterfang if you know you're going to get through with Forest Walk damage. But yeah, Chatterfang is just amazing in this kind of deck. See, we have 1 copy of Squirrel Mob. So this is also an original foil. 1 and 2 green for a squirrel, 2/2. Squirrel Mob gets +1/+1 for each other squirrel in play. An army of squirrels is still an army. Come on, you focus up. There you go, right. So this was a huge part of my previous build. I'll get to that in a minute. But, you know, 1 copy of Squirrel Mob persists in this build. And then I have 1 copy of Toski, Bearer of Secrets. So this is the showcase foil, Toski. 3 and a green for a 1/1 legendary squirrel. Can't be countered and indestructible. It attacks each combat if able, and whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. Yep, that's just to try to get back in the game, but it's also really pricey as a squirrel. And only under certain circumstances is it going to do something for you the turn that it comes into play. It is an effective blocker the turn it comes into play, though. So, 1 copy of Toski, and then we have what is the top end of the deck. We have 3 copies of Deep Forest Hermit, which is again with the retro border. So 3 and 2 green for a 1/1 elf druid. It has vanishing 3, which means it enters the battlefield with 3 vanishing counters. And at the beginning of your upkeep, you have to remove a vanishing counter. When it runs out of vanishing counters, this thing is sacrificed. So when Deep Forest Hermit enters the battlefield, create 4 1/1 green squirrel creature tokens. Squirrels you control get +1/+1. So this, mechanically, is just a better version of Deranged Hermit. Because Deranged Hermit asks, for the same price, it asks you to pay that twice. But he stays around forever if you do that. If you pay 10 mana over 2 turns, it'll stick around. This guy only sticks around for 3 turns, but because of that, you're not sacrificing a turn just to keep it alive. So in those 3 turns, you might win the game, which makes a huge difference to the playability of this card. Right, so that is the creature base of my build. And then we will get to the lands. So here I have two copies of Swarmyard. So this is the Hope You Like Squirrels version that has the beautiful squirrel art on there. So of course this is just a regular land, adds colorless, and you can tap it to regenerate target insect, rat, spider, or squirrel. So that's really great for the squirrels that you want to keep alive. So great card, great card. I have 2 copies of Yavimaya Cradle of Growth. So these are also retro border. So this it not only helps you out with a handful of the non-forest lands that we have in this deck, but it also grants the path for Chatterfang to go through unblocked for your opponent. If your opponent is not running forests, this will give forests to your opponent so that Chatterfang can just go right through. We have 1 copy of Pendlehaven, and this is the time-shifted version. So this in my experience doesn't do a lot, but when it does finally do something, it's important. So it's a legendary land. You can tap it for green. It doesn't come into play tap, which is important. Target 1/1 creature gets +1/+2 until end of turn. So that can turn one of your squirrels into a 2/3. I mean, that's not bad to get a 2/3 squirrel token like early in the game. As soon as any buffs are on the board, though, that goes out the window. This could come in handy for Deep Forest Hermit or Toski. No, not Toski, because Toski is he'll be affected by the buffs. Sylvan Anthem takes that second ability just completely out of the running. But until you get Sylvan Anthem, this could help some of the smaller creatures. Then I have three, yes, so I have three copies of Fabled Passage. So here we go, Fabled Passage, again, retro border. So Fabled Passage is a great land. You just put it in a play, and then you sack it to go look for a basic land, put it in the play tapped. If you happen to have 4 more lands, then you untap that land that you put into play. So this is good for thinning out your deck and for getting the very sparse amount of swamps that are in the mana base. So I'll go there. And those, that of course, that black mana is helpful for Chatterfang's cost and for the Ravenous Squirrels cost. So here we got, I managed to get them. So I have 4 copies of Woodland Cemetery. I got the retro border foils from the Dominaria Remastered. So this is a land that produces black and green, and it enters tapped unless you control a swamp or a forest, which you are going to. You're going to control a forest, for dang sure. So you have 4 of these just to ensure that you have the mana production that you need. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We have 9 basic forests. So these I got from the Lorwyn set. I had these just because they felt squirrely. These were some of the original lands that I used in my original build, and I just liked the art. Now I'm thinking I want to try to get old school foil forests to match the retro borders that I have going on with everything else. But yeah, these are beautiful lands. And once I was able to get these, once I was able to secure all of these, then I was like, okay, let's start foiling out the deck. Because the lands, to me, especially since they were kind of older, that was going to be the hardest thing for me to get, in my opinion. That they all matched and not just having a mishmash of lands. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 forests. And then we have 2 swamps. Just 2. Because black is not important here. Not until we get Chatterfang, and you're not guaranteed to get Chatterfang every game. So just 2 swamps. And that is my mana base, which is a total of 23 lands, if I remember correctly. Let's do a quick count. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Yep, 23 lands. 23 lands. Because you need to get to like 5+ for Deranged Hermit. Not Deranged Hermit, for Deep Forest Hermit. So that is my 60 card build. So was it? So of course, it's self-explanatory that Land and War Elves is just there to ramp. It's also a body to block if you absolutely need it. Squirrel Sovereign is there to push through when you go wide. Chatterfang is there for squirrel production and for removal. Squirrel Mob is just big. Toski is there for card draw. Big one-time squirrel production and buff for a while. Your quickest and easiest squirrel productions right here. Here too. Was it Driven to Despair is freaking game changer / finisher. Sylvan Anthem is a buff and you got more production there. Death Touch is huge, and Squirrel Production plus buff is huge. Regenerate your Chatterfang or any of your Squirrel Sovereign, all that goodness. So this is my current build, but when I originally set out to do this, because like I said, I've been into squirrels for a long time. I originally had a mono green build before Modern Horizons 2 brought us all of this squirrel support. If you look at some of the cards in here, it's the same symbol over and over, because Modern Horizons 2 was just, hey, I hear you like squirrels, so let's give you some squirrels. So before that, I was using cards like Echoing Courage. Echoing Courage is 1 and a green for an instant that target creature and all other creatures with the same name as that creature get +2/+2 until end of turn. What a great combat trick when you've gone wide. Just a great combat trick. I was also using a set of Acorn Harvest. So these are the original foils for that. Another really beautiful card. So it costs 4, so this was rough in my original build. But you got 2 squirrels, and then for another 2 mana and 3 life, you got 2 squirrels again. So this was huge squirrel production way back in the day before all the squirrel support. Was it for enchantments? I had, was it Druid's Call? So this is an original foil for Druid's Call. You'd be amazed at how much something like this is, just from how old it is now. It wasn't crazy when I got it, way back in the day. But 1 and a green, you enchant a creature, and when enchanted creature is dealt damage, its controller puts that many 1/1 green squirrel creature tokens into play. So you put this on a singular squirrel token, and if they don't waste removal on it, they don't want to attack with something big because you just block and you make a whole bunch more squirrels. Combo that with Swarm Yard? It's like, whoo, you don't want to attack with nothing. It's like, you hope you have flying, because yeah. And of course I had a set of Rancor. So Rancor, 1-drop enchant creature, +2/+0 and has trample, and when it goes to the graveyard from the battlefield, you return it to your hand. So when I was using these, I had a play that I used to call Fireball Squirrel. So it would be, and it would happen more often than you think. It would be turn 1, Shadow of the Squirrel, turn 2, Rancor, attack. And that is a huge play. You're doing 5 trample damage right off the bat if they don't have a 1-drop to kill it. If you lose the squirrel, well, you get your Rancors back, so then you can Shadow the Squirrel again and put a Rancor. If you have Swarm Yard, then you have this repeatable 5 damage trample guy that you just regenerate so that damage won't kill it. So that Fireball Squirrel play was something that I really, really enjoyed. And of course, before there was Deep Forest Hermit, there was Deranged Hermit. Look at that. Ooh-wee. Now, while this wasn't cheap when I got it, it sure as hell wasn't anywhere near what it is now. And here I have 3 of my original 4. One of my original 4 is in my Chatterfang deck. But yeah, this is what I was talking about. You paid 5 to get 4 squirrels, and all squirrels get +1/+1. This says all squirrels, by the way. I believe, let's see, how is Deep Forest Hermit? Deep Forest Hermit is squirrels you control. So you see, Deep Forest Hermit is just mechanically better. But this was the guy. Man, Deranged Hermit was the guy. Is that echo cost. You had to pay its casting cost again. So you had to get to 5 mana out, either with trudging through and getting 5 lands, or by having like 2 Llanowar Elves. You had to take that turn to play Deranged Hermit, get your squirrels, and then if Deranged Hermit survived, you had to take another turn just to ensure that he stays on the board to buff your squirrels. That was such an investment. But that was what my original build was closer to, with having these cards over here. And now there's a part of me that really wants to find room for Rancor and Echoing Courage again in this build. Like, I think maybe I'm relying too much on Ravenous Squirrel. Ravenous Squirrel, I don't know, provides the same kind of value as Shadow of the Squirrel, and I don't think it would this card provides me the same kind of value as Rancor does. Because losing out on the Fireball Squirrel play is something that I really miss, and Echoing Courage is also a really good comeback trick. Another thing I had in my original build was Obelisk of Erd, because Obelisk of Erd, you could tap your squirrels to help pay for it, so it would be free. It would be free in most cases, or in most cases you would be turn 3, tap 3 mana, tap 3 squirrels, and you name squirrel and your squirrels would get +2/+2. But you would of course leave yourself open that turn to take a lot of damage. But this is my current build, and this is what I had in the past, just to show you that yes, I was serious about making a foiled out 60 card squirrel deck back in the day, because I do love me some squirrels, always have, and I'm always eager to see if they print anything new for the squirrel strategies. So hope this fulfills the request adequately. This is the first time I've ever done anything like this. So thank you very much for joining me on this one. If you like my quirky content, like, comment, share, subscribe. Boost the Schlub's numbers. Thank you once again. Stay Schlubby, my friends.